Welcome to Golden Memories. I'm Barbara. Here, we revisit the lives of cherished icons whose moments continue to shine through time. Their talent, warmth, and dedication left a lasting impression on audiences everywhere. Join us as we celebrate their journeys across film, music, and culture, honoring memories that remain timeless and forever inspiring. Artist Pat Steer passed away in New York City at the age of 87, leaving behind a body of work that reshaped the way movement could be experienced on canvas. She was widely known for her waterfall series, where she allowed paint to be poured, dripped, and guided from above, letting gravity act as an unseen collaborator in her process. Instead of tightly controlling every brushstroke, she welcomed unpredictability, watching as pigments spread, merged, and separated while traveling down the surface of the canvas. The result was a sense of motion frozen in time, as if the paintings were still quietly flowing even after drying. Viewers often described her work as carrying a kinetic pulse, where abstraction and emotion intertwined in a physical, almost atmospheric way. Her studio practice emphasized patience and observation, allowing each piece to unfold gradually, rather than be forced into completion. Today, she is remembered for transforming paint into movement and rhythm, and for leaving behind a visual language that made still images feel alive. Her legacy continues to inspire artists today. Nick Pope, born in England in 1965, began his professional journey as a British civil servant working within the Ministry of Defence. In his early years, he followed a steady and conventional path, building a career that gave little hint of the public attention he would later receive. In 1991, he was assigned to a small, quiet office responsible for reviewing reports of unidentified flying objects. The work often involved sifting through routine explanations, yet some accounts described unusual aerial movements that sparked curiosity and debate, placing him in a rare position between skepticism and open inquiry. After leaving government service, Pope stepped into public life as an author and media commentator, appearing in documentaries and interviews where he discussed unexplained aerial phenomena with a calm and measured approach that resonated with audiences. In early 2026, he revealed a diagnosis of stage 4 esophageal cancer, continuing to speak publicly despite his declining health. He passed away on April 6, 2026, at the age of 60, leaving behind a legacy of thoughtful investigation and a reputation for balance, openness, and humanity. Lee Najjar, a businessman known for his association with a popular reality television franchise, has passed away at the age of 68. His daughter, Caitlin Najjar, confirmed the news on April 20 through heartfelt social media posts, sharing cherished memories and moments spent with him. Reports indicate he died on April 18th, though the exact cause of death has not been publicly disclosed. To many viewers, he was known by the nickname Big Papa, a figure often referenced during the early seasons of the series, though he never appeared on screen. His off-screen presence added a layer of curiosity and discussion among audiences at the time. Beyond media attention, those close to him remember a more private life, centered around family. His daughter shared emotional tributes, including photos and handwritten notes that reflected their close bond and his thoughtful gestures. He is survived by his wife, Kimberly, and their 4 children. While public interest once surrounded his name, his family remembers him for personal moments, love, and quiet connections that defined his life beyond the spotlight. The country music world is remembering Jim McBride, who passed away at 78, and reflecting on the lasting mark he left on songwriting. Born in Huntsville, Alabama, he discovered music early and eventually made his way to Nashville, where he built a career rooted in honest, relatable storytelling. His writing style stood out for its simplicity and emotional truth, which helped shape some of country music's most loved songs. He is especially known for his work with Alan Jackson on classics like Chattahoochee and Chasing That Neon Rainbow. songs that perfectly captured everyday life and small-town memories in a way listeners connected with instantly. Over the years, many major artists recorded his songs, including Reba McEntire, Johnny Cash, George Jones, Willie Nelson, Charlie Pride, Randy Travis, and Toby Keith, showing just how widely his writing was respected. Beyond songwriting, McBride also supported other writers through his leadership role at the Nashville Songwriters Association International, where he worked to protect their rights and recognition. His contributions earned him places in both the Alabama Music Hall of Fame and the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame. Jim McBride's legacy continues through the songs that still feel real, warm, and deeply human, keeping his spirit alive in country music. Actress Jennifer Renan, best known to many audiences for her appearance in Ghostbusters, has died at the age of 65. For fans, she is especially remembered for her role as the college student in the film's memorable opening sequence, where she appears alongside Bill Murray's Dr. Peter Venkman during the humorous ESP experiment that helps set the tone of the movie. Though brief, the scene became one of the most recognizable moments in the film. Beyond this, Renan maintained a steady career through the 1980s and early 1990s, appearing in films such as Up the Creek and the television movie A Very Brady Christmas, while also becoming a familiar face on television. She was widely recognized for her role as Gwendolyn Pierce on the sitcom Charles in Charge, which highlighted her natural charm and screen presence. Her television credits also included appearances in Another World, Quantum Leap, Magnum, P.I. and Murder, she wrote. According to a tribute shared by her family, she will be remembered for her warmth, love of life, and devotion to family and friends. Her work continues to be appreciated by audiences who remember her performances fondly. Blake Garrett, best known for his role as Plug in the 2006 family film How to Eat Fried Worms, has passed away at the age of 33. He is remembered for bringing a natural charm and playful energy to the screen, particularly in How to Eat Fried Worms, where his comedic timing and expressive performance helped make him a standout in the ensemble cast. His portrayal captured the awkward, humorous, and sometimes messy experiences of childhood in a way that resonated with many young viewers. Before his film work, Blake's passion for performing began early in life, as he participated in local theater productions and later joined Barney's Colorful World International Tour at the age of 10, an experience that helped shape his confidence and love for entertaining others. In 2007, he and his co-stars received a Young Artist Award for Best Ensemble, highlighting the strong connection within the cast. Those who knew him described him as creative, energetic, and deeply connected to the people around him. In later years, he focused on personal growth and building a more grounded path forward. He leaves behind a legacy of warmth, nostalgia, and memorable storytelling that continues to be cherished by fans. Alan Jackson was born on October 17, 1958, in Noonan, Georgia, a small southern town where life moved slowly and expectations were simple. He did not grow up surrounded by fame or industry connections. Instead, his early world was shaped by church hymns, country radio, and a working-class household built on modest means and steady faith. His father worked as a mechanic. His mother held the family together, and the home they lived in was built around necessity rather than comfort. That environment left a deep impression on him. Music was never treated as a luxury or a career path, but as something emotional and grounding, a way to process life itself. As a child, Alan was quiet and observant rather than attention-seeking. He wasn't the standout athlete or academic. He was the boy who listened closely to sounds around him. Gospel music in church and classic country voices on the radio formed his earliest sense of storytelling. Those influences became the foundation of a style that would later feel unmistakably honest. Even before he understood the idea of a music industry, he understood feeling, loss, hope, longing, and how songs could hold those emotions together. That emotional clarity would eventually become his defining strength as an artist. childhood lessons, faith, and the first guitar. Growing up in rural Georgia meant learning early that life didn't offer shortcuts. Alan's childhood was shaped by routine, responsibility, and a strong sense of family unity. Money was limited, but emotional grounding was not. His parents emphasized faith and perseverance, and those values quietly shaped his personality long before he ever considered performing on a stage. One of the most important moments in his early life came when he received his first guitar as a teenager. It was not an expensive instrument, but it represented possibility. He taught himself to play, slowly building coordination and confidence through repetition rather than formal training. He spent hours in his room practicing chords, listening to records by artists like George Jones, Hank Williams, and Merle Haggard, trying to understand not just how the music worked, but why it felt so real. That early discipline mattered more than talent alone. He wasn't being shaped by industry expectations. He was being shaped by necessity and patience. Music became a private language, something he used to make sense of emotions he couldn't easily express in conversation. It was still not a career ambition at that stage, just a personal refuge that would eventually grow into something much larger. Marriage, early work, and years of uncertainty. After high school, Alan's life followed a path that looked ordinary on the surface. He worked different jobs, retail, construction, and other steady labor, just to make ends meet. There was no immediate sign that music would become his future. During this time, he married his high school sweetheart, Denise, building a relationship rooted in familiarity and shared history, rather than glamour or ambition. Those early years were defined by financial strain and uncertainty. Alan still wrote songs, but they existed mostly in notebooks and private moments rather than professional settings. He and Denise lived modestly, often balancing unstable income with long-term hope. Denise worked as a flight attendant, which helped support them financially, while also exposing her to a broader world outside their immediate surroundings. What stands out about this period is not success, but persistence. Many aspiring musicians in similar circumstances abandoned the dream during these years, but Alan didn't fully let it go. Instead, he kept writing, refining his voice quietly, while working jobs that had nothing to do with music. That slow, unglamorous development would later become essential to his authenticity as a performer. Nashville and the long road through rejection. When Alan and Denise moved to Nashville in the mid-1980s, they entered a city built on ambition and competition. Nashville was not a welcoming place for newcomers without connections. It was an industry town where thousands of hopeful artists were trying to break through at the same time, and most never did. Alan worked in a mailroom at a music network while continuing to write songs at night. The contrast between his day job and his aspirations was sharp. He was surrounded by the music industry, but not yet part of it. Record labels rejected him repeatedly, often without detailed feedback. There were small performances, minor opportunities, and brief moments of encouragement, but nothing that suggested immediate success. Through all of this, Denise remained a stabilizing force. Their partnership became essential to survival during a period when emotional doubt could easily have ended the pursuit entirely. The turning point came gradually, rather than dramatically, as his songwriting began to circulate more seriously among industry professionals. Producer Keith Stegall and other key figures eventually recognized the clarity in his writing, songs that didn't try to impress, but instead tried to tell the truth simply. That recognition led to his first recording contract, not as a sudden discovery, but as the result of years of quiet persistence, breakthrough, and the arrival of a distinct voice. Alan's debut album, Here in the Real World, marked the beginning of his professional career in country music. It did not explode overnight in a dramatic way, but it steadily gained attention because it sounded different from much of what was being released at the time. His music leaned into traditional country instrumentation and storytelling, rather than the pop-influenced direction that was beginning to dominate radio. The title track and other early songs introduced listeners to a voice that felt grounded and familiar. It wasn't performative or exaggerated, it was direct, almost conversational. That quality helped him stand out in an industry often focused on image as much as sound. Audiences connected with the sense that he wasn't trying to reinvent country music, but to preserve something essential within it. As the album gained traction, it became clear that Alan was not a one-time success. He had arrived with a consistent artistic identity already formed. That consistency would define his career for decades. Rather than chasing trends, he established a foundation that allowed him to build a long-lasting presence in country music. The 1990s and the rise to country music stardom. The 1990s became the decade in which Alan Jackson transitioned from emerging artist to major country star. Albums like Don't Rock the Jukebox, A Lot About Livin' and A Little About Love, and Who I Am produced a steady stream of hits that dominated country radio. Songs such as Chattahoochee and Remember When became cultural touchpoints, blending nostalgia, humor, and emotional sincerity. During this period, his popularity grew alongside a broader debate within country music about its direction. While some artists leaned toward pop crossover styles, Alan remained committed to traditional instrumentation and storytelling. This wasn't framed as rebellion in his public persona, but it was clearly reflected in his artistic choices. His success also came with industry recognition, including major awards and sold-out tours. Yet even at the peak of fame, his public image remained relatively grounded. He wasn't known for controversy or spectacle. Instead, he represented continuity, a link between classic country traditions and a modern audience still interested in them. By the end of the decade, Alan Jackson was firmly established as one of country music's defining voices, with a catalog that balanced commercial success and stylistic consistency. Tradition, identity, and the changing sound of country music. As country music evolved in the late 1990s and early 2000s, tensions emerged between traditional sounds and modern commercial production. Alan Jackson became associated with the traditionalist side of this shift, not through public conflict, but through musical consistency. He continued to use steel guitar, fiddle, and straightforward storytelling in a period when many artists were blending genres. This positioning gave his work a sense of stability for listeners who felt disconnected from the changing industry. His songs often reflected everyday experiences, love, loss, work, and memory, without relying on heavy production or dramatic reinvention. That simplicity was part of his appeal. Rather than resisting change aggressively, he simply maintained his approach. That quiet consistency made him a symbolic figure in discussions about what country music was becoming. He wasn't positioned as a critic of change, but as a reminder of where the genre came from. Through it all, his identity as a songwriter remained central. His career was not built on reinvention, but on refinement, continuing to express familiar themes in a voice that audiences trusted. September 11th and a Song for a Grieving Nation. Following the September 11th attacks, Alan Jackson wrote, "Where were you when the world stopped turning?" A song that reflected personal confusion and collective grief, rather than political interpretation. Instead of attempting to explain the event, the song focused on emotional response, questions, memories, and the small human moments that persisted in the aftermath of tragedy. When he performed it publicly at the Country Music Association Awards, the response was immediate and deeply emotional. The song resonated not because it offered answers, but because it acknowledged uncertainty. It became widely shared across the country, used in memorials and moments of reflection. The success of the song marked a rare instance where a country music performance became part of a national emotional conversation. It also reinforced Alan Jackson's reputation as a songwriter capable of capturing feeling in its simplest form. The song remains one of the most recognizable responses in popular music to a national tragedy. family life, marriage, and private struggles. Throughout his career, Alan Jackson's marriage to Denise remained a central part of his personal life. Like many long-term relationships, it experienced periods of strain, especially as fame introduced long separations, public attention, and personal pressure. These challenges were later acknowledged publicly, reflecting a relationship that required effort and honesty to sustain. Denise's role in his life extended beyond emotional support. She was part of the foundation that allowed his career to develop in the first place. Their relationship endured not because it was untouched by difficulty, but because both partners remained engaged in maintaining it over time. Unlike his public career, much of this aspect of his life remained private. When struggles did become public, they were framed in terms of accountability and reconciliation rather than scandal. That approach reflected the same tone that characterized his music: direct, unembellished, and grounded in personal responsibility. Health challenges and life in later years. In recent years, Alan Jackson revealed that he has been living with Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, a neurological condition that affects mobility and muscle control. The diagnosis explained physical difficulties he had begun experiencing while performing. Rather than immediately stepping away from music, he continued to perform when possible, adjusting his stage presence as needed. The condition does not define his career, but it has influenced how he approaches touring and live performance. He has spoken openly about the realities of aging and physical limitation, offering a candid perspective on life as a longtime performer facing health changes. Despite these challenges, his legacy remains intact. His influence is visible in modern country music, both in artists who follow traditional styles and those who blend genres. His work continues to be played widely, reflecting a career built on consistency rather than reinvention. Legacy of a voice that stayed true. Alan Jackson's career spans decades of change within country music, but his core identity as a songwriter has remained steady. From small-town beginnings in Georgia to international recognition, his journey reflects persistence, discipline, and a commitment to emotional honesty in songwriting. He is remembered not only for chart success, but for the clarity of his voice, both literal and artistic. His songs often focus on ordinary life, but they achieve resonance through simplicity rather than complexity. That approach allowed him to connect with audiences across generations. Ultimately, his legacy is defined by endurance. Through changing trends, personal challenges, and the passage of time, he remained consistent in how he approached music. His story is less about dramatic transformation and more about long-term dedication to a craft that began in a small room with a borrowed guitar and never fully left its roots behind. A quiet epilogue that still keeps singing. In the later stage of his life, Alan Jackson stands less as a figure of constant public momentum and more as a living archive of modern country music's most formative decades. His presence today is not defined by chart competition or industry urgency, but by endurance, both artistic and human. Even as health challenges and aging have naturally slowed his physical ability, the emotional weight of his catalog continues to carry forward without him needing to reinvent or reintroduce himself. Songs written decades ago still circulate through radio, streaming platforms, and live performances, not as nostalgic artifacts, but as active parts of people's lives. That kind of longevity is rare in any genre, and it speaks less to momentary popularity and more to consistency of voice over time. What makes his later years particularly notable is the absence of performance-driven urgency. Instead of chasing relevance, his career has settled into something closer to reflection. Audiences who once discovered him in youth now return to his music in adulthood, finding that the themes, family, memory, faith, regret, and joy, have aged alongside them. Even when he is not physically on stage, his influence continues through artists who cite his work as foundational to their understanding of country storytelling. In a broader sense, His legacy no longer depends on output or visibility. It rests in resonance. The same qualities that defined his earliest songs, simplicity, honesty, and emotional clarity, remain intact, allowing his music to function as a long-running conversation between past and present, still quietly continuing without needing to end.